Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, this is our 1000th episode. Yes, you actually heard that right. 1000. I've published 1000 times. This little finger here, man. Bam, 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 bam. And over the past 5 years, I've had the opportunity to interview many different guests. I've learned so much from many of our guests, from our listeners, from community members. But today we decided to do something a little bit different. On this 1000 episode, I asked some of you some questions in our Facebook group, the Sales Evangelizers. What kind of questions you want to hear from me on this 1000 episode? Or what kind of answers you want to hear? And you asked questions, so I decided to answer them. But I did something different. I went ahead and got my good friend Stephen Hart from the Trailblazer.fm podcast. And Stephen actually came on a show and he gave me the other type of experience where he was the actual interviewer and I was the interviewee. So I got a chance to go on the other side of the table to answer questions as Stephen asked them. It was a fun interview. It was soul searching and he asked some questions that I wasn't expecting. And they actually gave me an opportunity to learn a little bit more about myself. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for your support over the past 5 years. We can't wait for another 5 years more, or 10 or 15 or however long we go with this podcast. We'll keep going until it becomes boring. And it hasn't been boring. It's been fun. And I'm grateful for you and for helping us to maintain this amazing group and this amazing podcast. So listen to the episode. Tell me what you think. Look forward to seeing you later. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. But let's go ahead and dive into it.
Hello and welcome to the 1000th episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast. And if you're not doing a praise dance right now, I'm going to give you another opportunity. Give you one more chance because this is the 1000th episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast. Oh my gosh. I'm Stephen Hart and honored to be guiding this conversation. And getting an opportunity to turn the tables on your fearless leader and host, the sales evangelist himself, Mr. Donald C. Kelly. Donald, first things first, congratulations, my brother.
Well, Stephen, man, thank you. And I appreciate your willingness to help out with this and to do this interview for us. I'm excited to do it. And I can't believe it. I can't believe we hit 1000. And you've been a part of this journey for a long time. So I figured it would be great to have you come in and share some of the questions that you have and questions our community have and to fuel this. I thought it would be a great combination. So thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I'm so honored. I'm so excited for you. And also congratulations to your amazing wife, Christina, and the whole TSE squad. Cause I know you're the face of the brand, but there's so many people in the background, right?
Oh my goodness.
Have helped to make this, to see this phenomenal accomplishment come to life. So congratulations to your whole squad.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I was reflecting on the magnitude, right, of this as a content creator, as a podcaster myself, thinking about the massive 1000 is such a massive number, right?
Yes.
And I was going through your library of content. And I had to go back to like June of 2015 to find your 150th episode. I just crossed my 150th episode. So the magnitude of 1000 is just amazing. And, I can see the smile on your face right now. And I know you're beaming with gratitude. And as you reflect on the accomplishment, I thought we could maybe start off by talking about some of the bigger opportunities and the blessings that you're most grateful for having had to this point.
Well, I would say probably first and foremost, one of the biggest benefit of doing a podcast in general, whether you've interviewed 30 individuals or in our case, like 600 plus individuals, the thing that I see is the relationships that you build.
Yes.
And that goes, and there's something weird about the podcasting community. Maybe it's in a lot of different industry, but specifically in a podcasting space, you find that people there's a camaraderie and like people want to help each other. So, absolutely. And maybe because of because the industry is so young in the infancy of the industry. So I've been able to connect with a lot of podcasters like yourself. We connected back when episode 1 went live, right? When you found that episode. And look at that now, the relationship that's built over the 5 years. I have folks like Jared who helped me to do the podcast. I have folks that's in my podcast, my network, like Alex Barker, folks that we know like Kwame, that we built this friendship and almost like family relationship because of the podcast. And then even with my guests, I've had a lot of business opportunities, or just like the fact that I've been able to connect with so many more individuals from around the world, people that I had no right connecting with because of the podcast. And I'll say that was probably one of the biggest part of it. Number two, the second biggest thing I would say a blessing that came from the podcast is the business. You mentioned some folks, but some of the background, you hear them in the credits, like Jershin, who does our audio editing. Shannon, she does our show notes. May, she does the guest coordination. You have my wife, Christina, assist with us. Me, Kate, that helped out. Jacob, that helped out every once in a while. So those people, like, we created a business from the content that we started producing that blessed individuals' lives with some income. We're not like making millions yet, but we're blessing and helping people's lives, as well as we're helping ourselves. And in 2015, you mentioned episode 150. I didn't realize it was that soon, but think about it. I jumped ship in August of 2015 from my full-time job. So around that, maybe say 150-ish episode, then, to now. But that created a lifestyle for us, and lifestyle business, that I've been able to do some traveling and been able to speak in different parts and throughout the country. And it all came and stemmed from the podcast and the individuals, businesses that we've been able to impact as well, from the Sales Evangelist training and consulting, developing from the podcast. So, those are some of the top things that I would see right away from it. So the relationships, helping other people, and then also the blessing for our own lives, like creating a business that's thriving for our family.
I love that. I don't know if you realize this, but the significance of the day we're actually recording this, by the way, for everyone listening or watching, today is December 28th of 2018. And the significance of this day, going back, there are two things that I can take note of. The first is that you published your very first episode. Episode 1 was published on December 28th of 2013.
That is right, because Apple didn't approve it until the 31st. That is right.
So today, we celebrate your 5th anniversary.
Wow, dang, dude.
5 years. 5 years. Congratulations on that, right? I forgot who said it, but it has been said that it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something.
Gladwell.
Which translates to, in working hours, about 5 years. So today, you're officially a podcast expert.
Bro, I did it.
So this is an amazing accomplishment. And I don't know if you realize, but Donald just shared an important piece, is that I was actually doing research to start a sales podcast and met you doing research on your first guest, Jeffrey Gidemo. Okay? And I stumbled on you, and it took 2 years, but I decided to pause because there's a Jamaican guy already doing a sales podcast.
Oh, great.
And yet you remained a bug in my ear. And, you encouraged me to start a podcast. And something else, I don't know if you realize, but it was December 28th of 2015 that you were my very first guest.
Look at that, dude. We need to celebrate this day every year.
You recorded my very first episode on this day.
Dang.
So December 28th carries significance, my brother.
I'm writing that down. We're going to put that on the calendar.
Right? But there's 1,000 episodes. I know you've shared this in the past, but bring us back and really speak to us about TSE in the beginning. Where was this all coming from?
Yeah.
What's your why?
I went to, I was working at a software company in Boca, and my dream was, like, I've whiteboarded my life, college, and the plan was after X period of time, 3 to 5 years, around 3-year mark, I wanted to go back to grad school for an MBA, and we're looking at schools like in like Northwestern University. They have a pretty good marketing program. We started looking at like even Wharton. We started looking at Harvard, some of the big school. George Washington. So some of these great schools that we were looking into and doing prep for, or there was a fork in the road, or do a startup, like create a business. And inadvertently during that work experience time, and then as life went on, TSE eventually became that startup, the eventual startup. But when it first started, it was just really just a hobby. I've done sales in high school and college and pre-college. But then that was B2C. When I came to the B2B side, I really didn't know how to talk to people, how to set up a business opportunity, how to chase the prospect, how to reach out to them. Everything that the struggles that people had, I had it. Fortunately, the company put me through this training process, and it became like, I just got this excitement. I love to teach. And I'm very outgoing. So I'm just going to be straight up. I love being the center of attention. I love being on, in front of you, like that entertainer.
Yeah.
So marrying those two was edutaining. Let me go and educate and entertain at the same time. And our friend Jared introduced me to this world of podcasting I didn't know anything about. And the first podcast I listened to was Seth Godin's Startup School. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that podcast, but Seth had that podcast and I got hooked. I was listening to it. He did some like a retreat with some folks, and it was like probably 10 episodes or whatnot. It's like one of those Netflix shows that you only have one season of and get you so annoyed. So, but I listened to it and I was hooked. Yeah, and I wanted more. So then I started binging on Pat Flynn stuff, and I saw that he created this passive income. So the entrepreneurial side, because in the back of my mind was startup or college. Right. And I mean, for the grad school. So then this entrepreneurial mindset started to brew, like, well, maybe I can start something that's going to be not as heavy as getting a product developed, because I was trying to think about software at this point, to developing software. But then the entrepreneurial bug started to drive and started to process, and the cog started to turn. I didn't see how we were going to make money, but I just said, well, this is a fun hobby. So the April of 2013 was when I launched my first video. It was a blog post. Wow. And it was like a vlog talking about the Sales Evangelist and the launch of this podcast.
So the platform had 6 months before the podcast came about.
Yeah, it had a while. And the thing though, it was my hindrance, my justification why I can't start now, the difficulty of doing it, and all those things. And that taught me a lesson. Like, sometimes you have to just pull the trigger and not worry. I was so worried about what it was going to sound like, what I was going to look like, what people are going to say about it, that they're going to say, well, this kid doesn't know much about sales, and all these other things. But finally, it came to the point where I felt that I needed to do it. So the origin of all was like, if you know something, this belief that you need to share it. And I just seeing how tough it was for me to get that first sale or to get past that first hurdle. I'm like, surely there's got to be other people out there about it that need it. So when I got out of my own way, Stephen, and I started to look at how can I help other people, then that's when I actually did it. And as you look back on the situation, that's when the money actually started coming, when I wasn't necessarily looking for the money. I just started developing the content. And as a natural byproduct, I remember the first person, Jose Diaz, was the one that reached out to me. I did some work for him in college, and then he hired me to come in to coach him with training and coaching. That was like after launching the episode and sharing it on social media. And it was amazing. But people started to raise their hand because we started producing the content for the help of individuals. And that's how naturally it came from it. So that was a long-winded answer, but it all comes back to that passion to teach, the drive that I had for business eventually, or to go back to grad school. And then the fork led to the startup. And because we're serving a community, the business side of it became a real startup, so to speak.
I love that, man. I love that. And the importance of taking action, right? For everyone listening, in sales, done is better than perfect, right? You have to get out there and put it into action and let that feedback inform you on how to make things better as you go forward.
Oh, yeah, dude.
So I thought we could get into some audience questions. Because the Sales Evangelist community definitely had some questions they wanted to ask of you on this 1000th episode. And so Mike Simmons wants to know, what 3 things do you know now that you wish you had known when you recorded episode 1?
Oh, man. 3 things. Let's see. I would say the first one that I wish I'd known now. So one more time. 3 things I wish I know then that I know now, basically.
3 things. What 3 things do you know now? So 3 things you know today that you wish you had known when you recorded episode 1.
The first thing I would say then is that going back to the reluctance. So often if you go back and listen to episode 1, it's cringeworthy. Like it's like where's the excitement? You're a salesperson. It's like, welcome to the Sales Evangelist podcast. I'm
You
Donald
weren't that
Kelly,
fast. That's the first thing.
Sales
Your pace
Evangelist.
was very slow.
Because I'm nervous, man. I'm afraid. I'm just having this like, the self-conscious about my voice and about
Yes.
all the stuff. And so I wish I would have owned who I knew who I am. If I had owned my personality and who I am today back then, I think that would be a big difference. Number two, I would share, so own it and take an action. Number two, I would probably say that I wish I started doing video a lot more then. I wish. I mean, imagine 5 years of doing video on YouTube and sharing that content from then, as well as the podcast. So that was a hindrance because of the this is going to be our first podcast video, like a video that we're doing with a guest, myself and you, to publish on TSE, the sales of our TSE TV, because I have been the stumbling block, saying that I took 8 months or 6 months before I launched the actual podcast. Right. That hindrance held me back from doing video because I'm afraid. And I'll tell you, I talked to a guest and I was explaining this to her, and she brought it up too. And this other guy brought it up as well. I was afraid of comments. I was deathly afraid of what people were going to say if I post a video, that they're going to say, this is
5 years in.
Yeah, 5 years. And now it's just getting to that point. And
wow.
It's serious. So that fear of I wish I'd done video. So it kind of ties back to number one, but really video would have been such a great asset, taking advantage of it. And then three, people don't know what you have to offer until they know what you have to offer. I wish I had known that. And what I mean by it, when I first started a podcast, I was apprehensive about sharing what I can do as I started helping people like Jose. And then Destiny was one of my first, second coaching clients. And I was afraid, I didn't want to share stuff because I was afraid of coming off as those pushy sellers or just people online who are, they say they're giving value, but they're just pushing their own agenda. Right. So it was a mistake, because people do genuinely want to, see what you can offer. Mm-hmm. And it does us no good to hide our talents and our capabilities. So I'd say those are the top three things when it comes towards like the business. Take more action and be willing to just get outside of my own comfort zone. It kind of ties with the idea of doing more videos. I wish I'd done that more. I probably could have served a bigger community. But again, I got into my own way. And then the third one, right there, just kind of tying to this whole notion. I guess everything ties back to me just getting out of my own way and stop holding myself back.
I'm right there with you. Also needing to do more video. And the beautiful thing is you're getting started now, right? It's never too late. It's never too late to get going. So commend you on getting started even now. You touched on something a second ago, being concerned about the comments, and Linda Yates actually had a question about how you stay motivated when rejections keep coming.
Oh my goodness. Motivated when the rejection comes. I think this has to go back to the roots, right? There is the concept. We are just finishing up a book we're reading together, Think and Grow Rich, Black Choice. When Napoleon wrote the first one, Think and Grow Rich, one of the concepts that jumped out to me was the burn ship theory, or burn ship idea. And it goes back to Caesar. When they first went to Britain, they said they're going to burn the ships, and the guys can't, the soldiers were either going to fight and win, or they're going to die on the seashore there. So there's no way out. I would say for me, being in the situation that I'm in, I don't have a way. I do have a parachute. I can always go back into a full-time field. I can get a sales job anywhere. I'm employable in that sense, but I choose not to, because of I want to be able to master my own destiny. I want to be able to, drive my own ship. So when I do get the rejection, I have to realize, and it helps me, that it's not one person may say no, 2 people, 3 people, but there are millions of other people out there, and I can't let those few no's hinder me, because I have no other way. I have burnt the ship. I'm on the seashore. It's either I conquer, continue moving forward, or I lay down and die. And I don't want to go back and lay down and die. So I have to get up and I have to move forward. It also goes back to my mom, seeing her hustling, the Jamaican, mentality. Yes. Like when you graduate from high school in Jamaica, you can go to college, but it's not guaranteed you're going to get a job unless you get exported, right? Come to the US or Canada or UK, find some opportunities. It's tough. So what a lot of my family members I've seen done, they just start a shop, they start a business, they figure out something. My dad has a cesspool company. He has a blueprint company in Jamaica. My aunt, she came to the US and bought stuff, brought it back to Jamaica. She sold it. My mom had a little shop. So all of these things were around me in the hustle mindset. There shouldn't be no way that you can get something. You have to make it happen.
Right.
Coupled with those two, it gave me this fuel and this passion. So even when I get rejection, I have to realize it can't stop. And then being on the sales side, come on, bro. People tell you no all the time. But I often realize is that the no isn't necessarily directed at Donald or my lineage or my family. I can't get offended by it. This no is because Greg is busy doing something else, or he had to fire someone just now and he's not happy right now. So I can't expect Greg to realize and to give me the moment. Maybe I call him back in 2 weeks or connect with him. Or if I'm trying to do a project and something fails, we've had our fair share of failures, but those things I have to realize it's a setback in the moment, and not necessarily a hard no that's going to hinder my career, my life. Yeah. So that's what helps me. And my wife, like, that's a huge thing. E.T. always talks about what's your why, and Simon Sinek. I want to provide for her and for our family. And we had a tough time in our personal family life, my mom, brother, and sister, and I, when we were homeless at one point. We didn't have our own place. We had to live with relatives, and I had to live with my friend in high school. And seeing my family in that predicament, it made me realize I never, ever want my family to be in a situation where they had needs or wants. So it gives me that other drive to say, let's make this happen, and never make my future family, which is now my wife and our future kids, to ever have to have needs or have wants. So that's what keeps me going during those times.
Love it, man. Love it. There have been, oh my gosh, countless struggles, right? In the journey to get here. I can imagine I've had a million struggles on the path to get where I'm at. And we often go through some dark moments, right? Talk with us about some of the darkest moments that maybe your listeners don't even know about.
Ooh, I wish I knew the exact episode numbers, but if I go on to our downloads, I probably could see it. But there was the first lull is what every podcaster feels after that initial spike. Then when we start focusing too much on the numbers as opposed to the content. And that's what I did. I started focusing a lot on the downloads, and I saw that the numbers were dwindling, and I wasn't getting numbers are great measuring, right? But I started focusing too much on it, and I saw that the numbers weren't as great. And then it put me into this state of like, oh man, am I saying something wrong? How come this person is doing better? Their show sounds good. This sounds like they're doing pretty well. This guy's getting X amount of downloads. But it put me in a state where I started to compare too much, and I neglected early on my community, the people, say the thousands of a couple thousand people who are listening to us, or 1,000 individuals who listen to us. Like, that's a lot of people still. But why am I comparing it to what, Josh or James or Lisa is doing? And that hindered me a little bit from focusing on the good content. So that put me in a little, comparison state, and was like saying, was this even good? But then you got a chance to get past that as I started to see the LinkedIn messages and people reaching out to me. And I used to ask people to connect with me on LinkedIn, and would hear what people are saying. Like, that was a renaissance, so to speak. Like, within that, after that first year or so, that made me realize there are people who are getting a lot of benefit from the stuff. Keep producing it, keep producing good stuff. Then I said the biggest time would be, the darkest moment was, what year is it? 2016. Around 2016, we had some website issues, and the podcast, we were trying to convert from our older website to a newer website. And it was for probably like 2 to 3 months, Stephen, I wasn't producing content, probably about a good month to 2 months, 1 to 2 months. Like, I wasn't pumping out content because we had website issues and stuff with back end stuff with our host provider, and I think I even spoke to you during that time period. It was just, it was really frustrating. And it got so bad that I started to experience like massive stress, like huge stress, because now the podcast is a catalyst for our business side, and I'm not producing content. So I'm not getting my marketing, quote unquote, out, not getting opportunities for my training. And it was just frustrating. I remember that one day I was driving home, I was having a conversation with a listener. He had called and wanted to, we set up a time to chat, and I was driving home from visiting with some friends. And that whole day, my headache was so bad. Like I got this migraine. I'd never had a migraine like that in my entire life. So I didn't know what to do. I had to tell the guy, respectfully, like, hey man, I have to go. I pulled over on the road, and sorry to be descriptive of this, but I threw up because this migraine was just killing me. I couldn't, and I was driving home. It was just aching. It was nighttime, the lights, and I was like, man. So I called my wife and told her, like, I'm just not feeling good. And
In
explained.
that moment, did you think you were going to quit?
It was like more of like, I don't know if this can continue. Like, how was it going to continue? I don't know if she was going to quit. I think it was like forces beyond my own. Like, I didn't know how it's going to fix all of this stuff, this technical things, technical problems that we had, and to get things going. I just felt that it was going to be maybe like a little, I felt that it was going to be a big setback, that I was going to lose the listeners, that people were going to not, when we do start
And subscribe.
whenever that comes back in again, they're not going to subscribe. They're going to unsubscribe, like you said. They're not going to be around. So I guess in that case, I thought that it wasn't going to progress properly.
Right.
But it was dark. It was tough, man. But it was frustrating, and it was like I guess I did have some of those moments, like, is this even worth it? Should I continue doing it after this?
And you come from that valley moment, DK, and things have gotten so much better. What was the lesson in that valley for you?
I learned that and one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that you can't succeed in a silo. There's no way. You name a company underneath the sun that succeeded in a silo, and that's a rarity. No matter who it is, they had help some way, somehow, from outside forces. And I think the word entrepreneur is deceptive, because sometimes you read the definition as someone who goes out and create a business, but that there's no one person that ever creates a business. And sometimes I didn't reach out to people because I was embarrassed sometimes for, where I was, whatever the company was, or where, struggles or difficulties, what we've had. And, we got some technical help, but it wasn't like finally got some technical help, got the right people to help out, and just realized I'm not Superman, and I shouldn't try to be, and I shouldn't claim to be. I have my kryptonite, and I should focus on the areas where I am the strongest, get the help, get the guidance, reach out. And a lot of people in our community and friends are willing to help. I think you gave me a lot of support during that time period. You gave me some encouragement and gave me what to do. And we even left for our hosting provider based on your suggestions and so forth. Now we're with SiteGround. Big shout out to SiteGround.
Big up.
The support and help was great. And got just reach out and got the right people that can help us out. But it was the advice, the discussion of talking to people like you that was able to help me to relinquish some of the burdens that I was carrying, and to recognize that I do need help and that I can't solve it on my own. And since then, it was after that time period, we had some huge, ridiculous spikes that came from posts like in the 800s. So imagine if I stopped or gave up at 600.
Right.
When it came to 800s, like that was it was a game changer. It's a huge difference. So
you've impacted, man. There's so much wisdom in what you just shared, and I love your transparency, and I think there's value in hitting that 15-second rewind a couple of times, folks, and listening in to some of what Donald just shared. But you've interviewed, I think you shared a second ago, it's been 600 plus guests, right?
Yeah, because we have over 1,000 episodes, and I do 3 guests per week since 2016 or so.
Wow.
So it's
that's a rough good estimate right there. What have been some of the top takeaways and themes that have come through having that many guests?
I would probably say that first, going back to that advice as number one, because I knew this question was going to come, and I thought about it a lot. But that probably was one of the first things, is that all of those people that I interviewed as an entrepreneur, they didn't succeed in a silo. They worked with other people. they partnered, they found people who are good. And it's not, some people have self-serving partnership, right? Where it's like, somebody's clearly winning and somebody's clearly losing. I ain't about that life. And I think that's where a lot of us get to, but there are people who are really genuinely willing to strategically partner with. I hate using that word sometimes, but there is a good strategy you guys put together to partner. You complement each other, or you get the right people who can genuinely want to help you, and they ask for a fair share of the price or whatever you have to pay them. And I've seen that that's one of those big key. All of those guests that I've had who have multi-million-dollar companies, people who are writing books like crazy or doing all these things, they've learned to find good synergy, good partners, good complementary folks to work with and help them step outside of the silo. I use this example in an episode recently. Look at Henry Ford, right? Think about the industries that came from the car industry that Henry could do on his own. You have Firestone that came from that. You have Michelin, tires, all of these companies. You have obviously like Rockefeller, the oil companies that we're partnering with. You have the radio makers in the future that came. You have so many industries that come. But imagine if one person was to say, like in the scriptures, the arm can't say, well, I have no need for you, or the legs can't say, I have no need for you. The whole body has to work cohesively together. So if you're a solo entrepreneur or you're a sales rep thinking that I'm just going to be the lone wolf and work by my lonesome self, that's not going to happen. Somebody has to fulfill the order that you sell. And you have to realize that people out there who are doing things better than you, and some people are in a different industry to have a bigger market. Can I strategically partner with them, give them opportunities and help them out? And the more I've realized that one lesson, man, I wish I started it a lot sooner. That could, just like catapult our organization. I mean, from that, now we're writing in HubSpot, right? We're a contributing writer there. We've been mentioned in like Entrepreneur. We've just got mentioned in Inc. magazine. All of these things come from realizing that I needed to reach out and to connect with other people. So that's one of the biggest things that I'd share. Number two is that you can't be afraid of selling yourself. For me, selling for other people, selling software was fun. It was easy. Some company, as I got the hang of it, it became a little bit easier. I knew what to do. And it was easy to sell, put a price on it. $30,000 for this many license, it was set. But now when it comes towards selling a consultancy, selling Donald Kelly, I first started off, and I'll be transparent with this. I first started charging for that client, Jose. He asked, how much are you going to do? Can you charge per month to coach? And I was like, I don't know, let's go for like 300. I was like, that's so much money though. Somebody's going to pay me that much to offer some, meet with them once a week for, an hour or so. But then things started to increase from there, but that's what I was asking for. And then eventually it got to the point, I think my second client was like 500 that I was asking for. And I thought that was good as well. But then as I interviewed and as I learned from all these folks, what they taught me was, and some of them blatantly told me this outright, maybe in post-recording conversations, they're like, you're charging too little for your services. You need to charge a lot more than that. And it's not because they're trying to gouge. Is if I'm coaching you as a sales rep, you're getting my 15 years of sales experience that you don't have. That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for 1 hour of conversation and guidance. You're paying for the knowledge of the expertise. Just like a doctor, I go to the doctor and, he's going to charge me like, I came with a chiropractor visit this morning. It's like $45 for adjustment, but I'm not paying for that, that little simple adjustment. I'm like, dang, I could probably do that at home, but that's not what he's doing. He knows what to tweak and what not to tweak and what bones to move and so forth, muscles, because he's had a couple of years of experience, and then his experience of his practice for the last 10 years as well on top of that. So that's what I'm paying for. And when we recognize that true value that we can offer to someone, that's huge. So as a sales rep going into a company, or as an entrepreneur, or as somebody is a biker or whatever you're doing, be cognizant of your worth and the capability that you have to offer. If you undervalue yourself, no one is going to overpay you. I promise you that. So eventually we got to the point where we started charging, over 1,000 and 1,500. And, now we have our priced on a website. People can see that. I think it's like $1,500 for a month, or so forth. And we even contemplating going even higher than that for $2,000 and so forth, as we're getting more and more coaching clients where my time become less, and
Wow.
our online programs. And my first big speaking opportunity, my wife, she's a huge consultant behind the scene, but she encouraged me to this organization that we're doing a project with to ask for 10 grand. And I was shy and afraid. So I asked for 8,500 and they didn't balk at it. They're like, okay, I should have just listened to her. It was 15 more grand, you could have done. But that's number two. I would probably say that this huge lesson is you have to know your worth and don't be afraid for asking. Ask for more than you're comfortable asking for.
Right.
And I'd probably say the final tip, just thinking about some of these guests, is like one of them early on was Ralph Quintero and Justin Sua, was the mental side, the mental game. I mean, I'm not talking about a lot of strategy here. I'm just talking about mental stuff, because I feel that's where bulk of it is this idea. Justin always says you win the morning, and Ralph, I got the do big things, because Ralph was always talking about, always push yourself for bigger and bigger and better and bigger things. So I got this idea, this mantra of do big things. Like we need to not limit ourselves. Sometimes we might say, well, I can't get any bigger clients, or this deal that I'm going for, I can't, there's no way that they're going to say yes, but who cares? What's the worst that's going to happen? Each day you should try to do something that's uncomfortable for you, that's going to push you outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that, once you start doing that, you quickly start realizing your comfort zone start evolving. And soon you might say, well, I was afraid of talking to executive, but now I'm having conversations with executives all the time. Well, why not approach a Fortune 500 company and try to get to with that type of a client? And obviously your company can fulfill it. If you can't, then don't try it. But if you can, then why not? Like, go for it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so those are the top three things I probably would share that I've gotten over the years from, I guess, collectively.
Some amazing nuggets of wisdom, DK. I love
Thank
that. Aiden Dodd asked a great question as you touch on some of what you just shared, how you manage the emotional roller coaster of being in sales and being a salesperson, a professional.
Preparation. The reason why we have that emotional roller coaster at times is because we don't prep. We don't plan effectively. Let me explain. If I know that it's the end of the month and I need to have some deals in the pipeline, I probably at one point, if I look back into the far reaches of time 2 months ago, I probably eased up off my prospecting gas, because I was in the moment there and not helping out Donald in December. October Donald should be looking to help December Donald. Make sense on that?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
What I've come to realize is that I need to plan way much further than what I usually would do. That helps with the emotional roller coaster, because now if I know, Murphy's Law always will take place. What will go wrong, what must go wrong will go wrong, whatever it is, what must go wrong will go wrong. And it will happen right then. So if I know that I need 5 deals, I would probably better to put maybe 7 or 8 deals in my pipeline. And people talk about different numbers, but you double what you might think that you need. And I'm not talking about just fluff, but quality stuff. You prep. Never ease up off the gas in the sales world of your prospecting. Never ease up off your closing. You have to have a systematic approach. So when I coach individuals, we train people, we train teams, but when we set up a process with a company or we coach the individual, I coach them on helping them to see way beyond the now and helping them have a system that's going to always work no matter what. They have to have that. And that's what helps with that lull, or it prevents the deep lull and the deep rifts and things that will happen. Because when you have money, everything is fine. When you're closing deals, everyone is happy, right? But it's when you don't have it, you get this, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if it works. But if you plan and prep, it kind of helps to not find yourself going into that valley or that gully of depression.
Yeah. Getting in your own headspace.
Yeah, man.
As a podcaster, bring you back to the podcast side for a second.
Sure.
I think of various elements, right, that had to be working for you and have worked for you to get to this place. Because again, the consistency, the frequency. How many episodes you publish every week?
5.
Right? The patience and determination, coming back to you having to set and achieve clear goals, generating money because the bills don't pay themselves.
No.
Right?
Try that, didn't work.
Creating engaging content that keeps people coming back for more, even 5 years later, and managing expectations. These are some of the attributes that I think of, but are there any other attributes or habits that have carried you this far you can think about?
What attributes have carried me this far? I would say you kind of mentioned the patience, and I would tie with that perseverance, right? I would tie perseverance with it. The other thing that I would say, that attribute that ties, man, you put some good question there, Stephen. Because you hit on some of those good attributes already, like, like say the patience. We talked about hard work.
I mean, for you, I am amazed by your ability to be this consistent with the frequency that you've committed to. And there's so many people, right, that don't make it a year in podcasting, yet you've done this, I think you said, since August of 15, right?
Yeah, April.
You've been at this frequency level.
Yeah.
I mean, that's remarkable, Donald. I
would probably say one of the things is being competitive. And as I talked a little bit earlier, not necessarily competing against other people, which always, there's a healthy competition level.
Co-opetition.
Yes, there you go.
Co-opetition.
So you have I remember not being mentioned on a list, like back in, I won't say the name, but there's a podcast, a sales podcast that I was listening to. I remember walking to work. I had my car in a shop, and I had to take the train down to work, and eventually fell in love with the train and started taking the train more, even when the car was fixed. But my car was in the shop, and I remember walking to the train station from, trying to get on the train and all this stuff. And I was listening to these podcasts, and I listened to a sales podcast, and I just started off, and I reached out to these folks to say, hey, would you guys be willing to be a guest on my podcast? And I heard crickets, and I know life went on, and maybe this wasn't anything malice or anything like that, but it just felt like, wow, I'm sitting here begging for a piece of the pie. I'm like, crap, let me just make my own dang pie. Let's see who else I can get beyond that. Right. So I started going for, larger guests and so forth. And the podcast started to grow. And then I remember seeing a list of people, like best business podcast for sales, and seeing these people on it. And not those folks, but some other people that you and I know today, but it wasn't necessarily sales podcast. And I was like, I want to get on a list like that. And since then, we've been mentioned, you push it forward. So it was co-opetition, where some of these people are allies and they're friends, but I wanted to be on those lists as well. So I pushed myself to be competitive and to bring myself to the table as well, where I can be seen as a reputable sales podcast. So that was one of them, being competitive and co-opetition. But the other thing was, I would say, is competing against myself. I've learned, I did track, and one of the things that sports, you need to, yes, you do have people you're racing against, but oftentimes you are all racing against the clock. So if the clock doesn't lie, the clock is going to be the true judge. In a sports game, it's a score, like say football, but in track, I need to race and beat that clock. If I ran the 200 meters in, say, whatever, I can't remember time, 21 seconds, then I need to make sure what can I do to get it to 20 seconds? The moment in track where you start to turn around and look back at people, you don't become aerodynamic anymore. And it's very easy to throw yourself off and lose focus. And that's what happens. You see when young folks are running, sometimes they're turning back to see where they're at. I don't need to see where you are. I need to look towards that finish line. So I try to compete against my yesterday. What can I do to make sure that I produce better content than yesterday? And if people listen to our podcast historically, they'll see. So I look at folks like Gimlet, huge shout out to Gimlet. I love what Alex is doing. And I saw that some of their things, and I started listening to NPR and some of these other larger podcasters that came into space, and they have the professional stuff that they've been doing. So I stole what they have been doing to adjust our content. And one of the biggest compliment I got recently, a couple of guys who are listening brought onto the show, it's like, man, great content. Love the production. Sounds like you have a great production going on. It's like, he's like, man, it sounds like an NPR podcast. In my mind, I was like, yeah, there you go. So
that's that R&D that Robin duplicates.
Hey, shoot. Robin all day. So like those are some of those things that's helped me. So I guess the attribute would be the competitive, being cooperativeness, like against others and working with others that's going to push yourself and help you. And the other thing too is competing against yourself. So that competitive nature helps tremendously.
Love it. Listen, there's some amazing things you've accomplished, and I love looking now at the ink and the HubSpots giving you that recognition. What have been some of the maybe not so much the accolades, but still some rewarding experiences from hosting the podcast?
I posted something the other day. This kid was sharing with me, and I'll share this, and I'll share one that comes from us. But this kid, that he was in a technical sales with a major telecom company. You can do the math and guessing and figure it out which ones. But he was in a technical role, and he realized that it was a dead end, that he wasn't going to progress, can't get any higher. So he wanted to get an increase in his income. So he wanted to go into the sales side. He then went ahead and started to apply for the sales position, got it. And he wanted to improve, so he went ahead and started researching sales podcasts. He sent a message and talked about how he wasn't doing too well and wasn't sure if he was going to be successful at it, but then found our podcast, started listening, and it helped him tremendously where he was working on closing his first deal. And we had a conversation scheduled, but he had to cancel, and I'm totally fine with that because he had a huge deal that he was getting an appointment with. And it just made me excited to hear that someone that was struggling like DK was back when he first started, got some help from me and the guests that we bring onto the podcast, that it helped his family because he was able to start closing deals and start recognizing, how to improve, all because of the content that the guests and I are sharing to our community. So that was super, super exciting. That's super rewarding to read those things. And I shared it on social. I don't share all of them, but every once in a while I share stuff. And that one figured it was share worthy. And I'm just grateful that we were able to do something to help him.
Absolutely.
I would probably say, so go ahead.
No, I sometimes those notes, right? But as a podcaster, I can definitely share with your community. It's a lonely path sometimes.
Oh, sure, man.
You've had millions of people download this podcast at this point in time, but it's a rare, moment when you get those emails and people share things that are tangible, experiences that their lives have been enriched by way of the content that we are creating. And Donald is a very humble person, so he's not gonna necessarily be the one sometimes to step out and to share some of these things. But I can tell you, being a podcaster as well, how much knowing the impact and the influence that the podcast has had. It doesn't necessarily need to be something that he touts and brags about on the show, but it provides tremendous fuel for him to push on. So as much as you have those experiences, I'm going to encourage your community to share those experiences with you.
Appreciate that.
Because I know that means quite a bit, and it provides that energy and excitement to keep pushing to create even more, to create the next 1,000 episodes. And so Kaylin Neerson wants to know, when's the book coming out?
My book coach Azul, he's the same thing. Azul's like, come on, man, we need to finish this stuff up. So I hired Azul early on in mid 2015, and he worked with us in our mastermind, and he helped me to get some of the concepts that we want to do for the book, and we started working on it. We had some setbacks in the fall, and we wanted to finish it up at the end of summer. But now our goal is the month of February from February 1 to 28th. It's not a leap year this year. So the goal is during that month to finish up the second half or second 3/4 of the book that we started. And that's when I need to get the content done. Now, when the book will be done, maybe sometime, maybe fall 2019, probably be ready with all the editing and revisions and all that stuff. So that's where we're looking towards right now.
So this time next year, we'll have a book.
We'll have a book this time next year.
Holding you to that.
Yeah, man.
So I know time-wise, we're coming into the close of the hour, but where do you see the Sales Evangelist in another 5 years? Another, when approaching that 2000th episode?
Oh, man. So as some of you know, we have a network and we've been reluctantly launching. And so you can go and check out some of the podcasts. We have the Sales Podcast Network. The goal is to continue to grow the network, like really do a big focus on it. I want to be able to have the community. Again, this is where the competitive side come in, right? I want to be able to have a community of sales podcasts or podcasts that are going to influence and help salespeople, marketers, and so forth. And to have that thrive, I want to create that avenue there in some way, compete with my good friends over at Gimlet, right? I want to be able to have that, but then specifically around the sales focus. Then the other part to it, I always ask myself this: when are we going to ever sunset the Sales Evangelist? And I don't see that anytime soon. I think eventually, maybe whenever this gets boring or get tired, and I haven't been bored or tired, so I don't see that happening for the near future here. But I can see with our other podcasts that we're launching that I could have a co-host, and I have those co-hosts eventually run some of those other podcasts that we're doing. So that's one area that we see is to continue to grow that network and to have the collective podcast community around sales join together. The other part to it is the business side, continuing to grow the Sales Evangelist. We have been very fortunate to have great sponsors. Big shout out to Maximizer, huge shout out to MailTag, big shout out to Prospect.io, PandaDocs, Prezi, Wiley Brothers. We've partnered with a lot of these great companies. And the goal that I can see, one of the things too, is with our sponsorship side and our network growing, is eventually I see the two separating, where the Sales Evangelist, media company, would be separated from the Sales Evangelist sales training organization. And in the next 2000 episode, I can see that easily happening. And the sales training side, I mean, obviously it's a family business in the sense where they're going to be super related and connected at the hip, but two different
subsidiaries. Yeah.
Because it's just both sides are growing and generating revenue for us. But the sales training and sales coaching and the mentoring and the courses, and we're getting our, the consultants that we have communication with. I have 3 people right now that want to become our consultant, to jump in and become one of our TSE certified sales consultant that would do some of the stuff that I'm doing, and that would multiply me and grow the organization. So we see that. And then in 2000 episode, I need to more than double where we are revenue wise. We need more than
You will more than double.
We will more than double it. 2019, our goal is to double it. So I imagine by then, I don't know, what is that, 2 years of real deal based on our pace? I don't know, probably quadruple where we are right now. That'll be fun. So.
23 is not that far away, man. So as you look at the future, last question here, as you look at the future of the business, does the platform look bigger than our podcast? You just shared that you're looking to implement video on the media side and talk about a training company.
Oh yeah.
What does the umbrella of this platform look like?
I think the podcasting space is going to be our bread and butter, like the core, because so many large companies are taking advantage of podcasting. I can see the media side creating podcasts for businesses around sales or marketing, or helping their leaders become creating a show that's going to help them. And that would be our, one of our services from our media side. I do believe video is going to continue to rise and increase. And I am even right now, if you look at YouTube they're starting to push their social media side on YouTube, on the app. You see where you can share stories. So you can share 30 seconds to a minute video on.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So if you just, I think it's maybe the latest update of the YouTube app, but either way, I see that continuing to this trajectory moving forward. So I want to make sure, like, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. In our case, start a videos 5 years ago. Second best time is today. So that's that method, that mentality. So I see video becoming a huge part. I can see us having our video studio built out a little bit more, and that'll be exciting. Create some original content around that. I think that'll be fun. And I also, that's where I see that going. And I don't know what else can, hold for us in a couple of years, but I want to make sure that we are doing those research and development, that we're taking advantage and testing stuff out. If you look at Gary Vee, he tested a lot of stuff, and that's one of his big things that he always shares. Test. He doesn't have to, it may not be successful. We're going to test it. We're going to try it. And we want to do some more storytelling type of podcast. I imagine a podcasting space is probably going to be maybe more like, this is my guesstimation. You look at like Netflix and how Netflix was a podcast production, they were a video, almost like a distributor where they distribute a video, but now they're creating original content. Amazon is creating original content. I just feel that there's a huge factor that people are craving for original content. And I can see how maybe some of these larger brands continue to create these original content, maybe on a mini scale. And I think I'll probably want to experiment with some stuff like that. It's probably too soon to talk about, but we have some ideas of stuff that we want to play with original content besides just podcast. So,
Mr. Do Bigger Things.
Got to, man. You got
Donald, I've been friends with you for several years, and I've learned so much just listening to you in this past hour. I am so proud of you, so inspired by you. You continue to be a guide, not only in the sales space, but I touched on this earlier. 3 years ago today, you were my first guest on my podcast. And so I say that not to talk about my podcast, but to share with the community your influence on the podcasting space, because I've been able to go on and impact a community of my own. And that's by way of you being a silent whisperer in my ear. When are you going to start? When are you going to get going? When are you going to put this to life? People need what only you can give. And to this day, I always, brag on you, and you're in the humble state that you always are in. You never want to hear it, but I give you props because you continue to impact and influence the podcasting space. You continue to encourage and uplift and influence the people in the sales evangelist community. And so I commend you. I acknowledge you for the amazing work you're doing. I encourage you to continue on to give the world what only you can give in the way you give it. And I'm excited to see what the future looks like because Donald C. Kelly lives in it and contributes to the world. So congratulations again on your 1000th episode. I'm so very proud to be a friend of yours and just cheering you on, my brother.
Amen, Stephen. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. It means a lot. And I'm grateful that we've been able to partner and to have our brotherhood and friendship for that period of time. And I'm grateful you took the time to come out and sacrifice some time and host this with me today and do the interview, and for your example and for the show that you have. And I am going to give a shout out to you. If you haven't checked it out as well, guys need to go check out Trailblazer podcast. And we're going to go ahead and put a link back into the show notes so you can connect with Stephen and some of the great things, man. But thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, my brother.
Wasn't that amazing? I'm telling you, man, it was fun being on the other side of the line and to be interviewed. I'm grateful for Stephen Hart, for him coming and asking these questions. And I'm telling you, some of them were soul searching. I was thinking, man, that's some deep questions there, Stephen. But it helped me to learn a little bit more about myself and who I am and where we want to go and how we're going to get there. So thank you. And I appreciate you being here and supporting the podcast. Many of you tell me how you hear about the show, and it usually comes because you found it on Google or you found a friend who told you about it. So you're preaching about the podcast. Thank you very much. I ask you to do one thing, though, before you go today. I ask you to check out mailtag.io. It's an awesome Crown browser extension, and it's going to help you tremendously with your emails. Also, I want you to check out prospect.io. We use prospect.io for our cold outreach, and it's absolutely amazing. It's this automation platform that helps you and your sales team just kind of set it and forget it. It's personalized communication. It's amazing. Check it out, prospect.io, as well as my good friends over at MailTag. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for, man? Go ahead and hit subscribe. Tell your friends about it. I share stuff like this because I want to help you. I want you to find more ideal customers. I want you to build stronger value. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, it's to challenge you each and every day to go out and do big things. Thanks, man.